I guess I'm going to movie today be doing reading, so I'll do this out. I don't know if I find this up, but yeah, let's go. Well, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy. Hope you're having a good day, good morning, and afternoon today. I'm in chapter 10. Mismatches expectations versus capacities. When you are intimate with the person, you have an opportunity to observe the actual capacities. When there is a mismatch between the expectations of one person and the capacity of the other person to meet those expectations, the result will feel like a violation of trust. To hold someone to expectations beyond their demonstrated capacity is not a violation of trust. It is the result of your not trusting what you know and insisting that it be different. There are times when we trust others when we believe that they know what we think they know, when the truth is they do not know. We trust them based on our belief that they know and understand what we want, that they know and recognize what is important to us, and they know what we expect and how they should behave in a given situation or under certain circumstances. We put our trust in them based on our perceptions. Unfortunately, there has been no meeting of the minds, no spoken agreement, and no clear communication of the meeting of the minds. But what we're thinking. As a result, the other people have no way of fulfilling what is expected of them. In an intimate relationship, it is always important to know and clarify what the other person is agreeing to do or agreeing to be for you. Pat learned about this lesson in her last relationship. She also just learned that what she first thought was a betrayal of trust on Jim's part and a mistake of trusting the wrong person on her part was actually a mismatch between her expectations and his capacity. Jim was a kind, generous, loving, and intelligent man, but in retrospect, Pat recognized that he had a totally different perspective of what to do and how to be in a relationship from the one that Pat held. When it came in the 3 C's of a committed relationship: communication, cooperation, and collaboration, Pat and Jim were on different channels. Unbeknownst to them, they had totally different awareness and understanding. After being single for more than 5 years, Pat rekindled her relationship with her ex-beau. They had remained friendly throughout the years, which is how she determined that they had both changed and grown. Throughout the course of their intimate communications, Pat discovered things about Jim that she hadn't known, and she learned to be comfortable sharing things and saying things to him that she had previously withheld. Pat and Jim never really decided to become a couple. They grew closer over time, and then Jim moved in. Once they were living together, Jim asked Pat to marry him, but she wanted to wait. The truth was that something in her gut was screaming, "No, wait, don't do it." And because Pat trusted herself, she acted accordingly. Throughout her life, Pat had a lifelong dream of being in a relationship with a man that could talk to her about anything and everything. And that's how she approached Jim. Once his clothes were in a closet, she talked to him about everything she did, everything she thought, and what she planned to do. It took her a minute to recognize that while Jim was always listened intently and would offer her his thoughts and opinions, he never really told her anything about his own life or plans. Pat always held a vision for all they would be able to achieve by working and planning together. Yet after a few months, she noticed that whenever they talked about doing something mutually beneficial, either it never got done or Jim would go off and do all of it on his own without inviting Pat to participate. Those experiences confused Pat because Jim always showed up to support her when she was working or running a community event. However, he never invited her to participate in any aspect of his work or life. Though Jim would always tell her what he was doing, he never asked her to participate. As she thought about it, all of those omissions were small red flags. Then there was a huge, gargling and flashing yield sign that she could not ignore. Over the course of their first year together, Pat realized that she had regarded as the meeting of the minds was actually two minds orbiting completely separate planets. Pat increasingly suspected that Jim had a tendency to tell what she wanted to hear rather than to respond to what she asked of him. And by this time, they had been together for 2 years. Pat recognized that Jim simply did not have the capacity to meet her expectations or needs. He had wired quite differently than she was and seemed unaware of how or why he was missing the mark. Eventually, Pat began to realize that what felt like a betrayal of the trust when Jim responded or did not respond in certain ways could have had a different kind of life experience and was working from a different frame of reference. Because his frame of reference was so different from hers. When she was raised initially with him, he would dismiss it or diminish it because it had no meaning to him. At first, Pat was tempted to believe that Jim didn't care and that he had immediately broken trust with her. However, she soon discovered that he understood what she wanted and simply proceeded to make everything happen from his point of view. Because Jim worked 3 hours away from where they lived, he would frequently stay at home in the city where he worked. This meant he could be gone 2, 3, even 4 days a week. As he left for his weekly trek, Pat would bid him farewell and say, "Let me know when you got there." "Okay, check in." "I'm good," Jim would respond. "God is my guide. I'm protected and covered. You don't even have to worry or think about me not being safe." "Yes, I know you will be safe, but it's a good relationship to check in. This way, if something happens and you are lying in a ditch bleeding, I can send out the Mounties." Instead of thinking, "Jim's fine, he doesn't call me when he's gone, I know that something was wrong. Why are you worried about me?" It's not worried about you, it's about communication and making sure that we have a pattern and process of regular habits so we can be alerted if anything goes sideways. Jim would leave on Thursday and Pat would not hear from him until or unless she called him. After several months of no calls from the road, Pat began to feel that she could not trust Jim to own her feelings. Even after she expressed how importantly the calls were to her, Jim refused to comply because he simply did not see the necessity. After many tearful and heated conversations, Pat began to accept that there was a major mismatch between her needs and expectations and Jim's capacity to fulfill them. Pat finally accepted that Jim didn't really understand how important staying connected was for her, or that honoring her request would establish deeper connection and trust between them. The same kind of disconnect can happen in any relationship, whether among friends or relatives. An instance where there is no meeting of the minds or common frame of reference, what results can often be constructed as a trust breakdown. Communication can strengthen willingness, expectations, intimacy, and understanding, but without a clear and definitive meeting of the minds, there could be no trust, and only with clear communication can you determine if two minds are really aligned. In relationships between men and women or between intimate partners, even as one person says, "I want what you want," the difference can often be mistaken for a sign of who cheats. The difference can often be mistaken for a sign of indifference or a violation of trust. We are not referring to the liar who cheats. We are talking about the small things, the day-to-day infractions that may have serious implications to the one person but do not register at all with the other. When there is no meeting of the minds, no communication or explanations of expectations, and no clear-cut agreements, it can look as if people have broken trust when the truth is they are just doing what they do the way they do it. While there may be no general intention to break trust, the small relative infractions and failures to meet expectations can over time be more damaging than an outright betrayal. Emotional vocabularies. An important step in learning and practicing how to trust others is taking the time to assess others' communication style and competence. It is critical to determine whether you and another person have a common emotional vocabulary and a well-stocked emotional library. There's generally ease to access through open communication and the sharing of experience. Yet too often these touchstones are overlooked. A person who went from high school to college to work, and is now 25 and has never been in a relationship for longer than 6 months may have a different emotional vocabulary and library than a 25-year-old who was raised in a series of foster homes, worked her way through college, got married at 20, and has been divorced for 2 years. While both may be 25 chronologically and psychologically, in emotional terms, they are likely on very different wavelengths. It's very easy to have your trust violated by people who function on a different emotional wavelength than you do. I witnessed this level of disconnection being played out in living color when I worked with Jay Williams, a man who fathered 34 children with 17 different women. Jay Williams and I first connected when he wrote to Iyanla, "Fix My Life," about his desire to bring all his children together for a family reunion. He had arrived at my place in his life where he recognized that it was important for his children to know one another, and it was important for him to learn how to be present for them. I was not intrigued by Jay's desire to bring his children together as I was about how he had engaged with and impregnated 17 different women. some of whom had born him with children of nearly the same age within months of each other. Oh, yeah. In working with Jay, I discovered that he had many unmet childhood needs and a great deal of unclaimed baggage related to trust. When he believed that most of his issues stemmed from his encounters with his mother, I recognized that his father had equal, if not greater, responsibility for Jay's behavior and sexual recklessness. Jay had a hole in his soul in the shape of his father that he had tried to fill with women. As one observer commented, Jay was a boy who wanted a toy, and he was willing to do whatever he needed to get it. What Jay wanted was the love and acceptance he had never fully experienced with either of his parents. Jay attempted to fulfill his desire through women who had similar unmet needs. I met only 1/4 of the women who had children by Jay. Each of them was beautiful, articulate, and very attentive to her children. After my conversation with each one, I found myself asking, what did she know? When did she know it? And why did she stay with a man who seems to have no regard for violating her trust? While Jay had lied and betrayed each of them, these women were still willing to be in a relationship with him. Even after they became fully aware that Jay had violated their love and interest, they were hard-pressed to tell him how they felt or hold him accountable for his behavior. Some of the mothers even went after each other for their involvement with Jay. That happened. Others just accepted his sometimes love and sometimes presence as a father to the children they shared. Jay's life story was a classic example of how when people with unmet needs attract each other, they only deepen each other's pain. What you draw to you on the outside is a function of what you are holding inside. Jay's relationship with so many women were a glaring demonstration of how people on different wavelengths with different emotional vocabularies and libraries engage in ongoing trust violations that are excused away with the currency of false promises.